Hey, this is Kenny from Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my channel. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the viewership and love and support you give me. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. In this video, I'm going to reveal my top 5 jazz fusion records or albums from the year 1973. That was a great year for jazz fusion. That was a great time period. You know, the early to mid 70s for a jazz fusion. Not a lot, but 2 or 3 records in this video were featured in my top 10 jazz fusion records that I did. I'll try to leave the link to that video in the description below if I can remember. So these are my top 5 jazz fusion albums from 1973, inspired by the video I did of my top 5 jazz albums from 1959. Please check that out. I'll try to leave the link to that video in the description below as well. But before I get to my top 5, I have some honorable mentions. Like I said, please leave yours in the comment section below, your top 5 jazz fusion records. Like I said, this is subjective. There's no right or wrong answer, so just, you can leave your top 5 as well. But I'm going to mention a few honorable mentions, maybe 2 or 3, and then I'm going to get to my top 5. And the first honorable mention is from the great jazz fusion group that actually is a jazz progressive rock group, in my opinion, Mahavishnu Orchestra Live. The name of the album is Between Nothingness and Eternity. This includes John McLaughlin on guitar, electric guitar, Billy Cobham drums. Definitely worth checking out. I listened to it on YouTube. Like I always say, list this stuff on YouTube before you consider buying it. This is worth checking out. If you like jazz fusion, progressive rock combined together, nice place to start. The Mahavishnu Orchestra, Between Nothingness and Eternity. Mahavishnu Orchestra Live. That's an honorable mention. Like I said, I'm going to get to my top 5 after honorable mentions. This is Miles Davis in concert, recorded live at the Philharmonic Hall, New York. I think one of my brothers had this, and I think this has been in my life since in the early 70s, 1973. At least I believe one of my older brothers had it. A great jazz fusion funk album, in my opinion. Jazz, what Miles was vibing, grooving to, and composing and playing at that time, 1973. Miles Davis in concert. And the last honorable mention is from the group Weather Report, one of the greatest jazz fusion bands of all time, if not the greatest. It's called Sweet Nighter, issued in 1973. This did not make my top 5, but the musicians on here are incredible. You have Joe Zawinul on keyboards, Wayne Shorter saxophone, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Eric Gravitt, I think it is, drums, Miroslav Vitros, I always mispronounce his name, but he was a spectacular bass player. It also include Dam Ramal. Now, Dam Ramal, here's the picture right here, was formerly of Sergio Mendes in Brazil '66. He left Sergio Mendes in Brazil '66, I think somewhere around the late 60s, early 70s, and found his way in the group Weather Report as a percussionist. A spectacular album to listen to. Matter of fact, this album, I struggled to get this in my top 5. It almost made it. It was almost a tie between the 5th album in my top 5. It really was. It's like it's 5A and 5B. It's that close, but I can only do 5. But this easily could have been in my top 5. But definitely a nice jazz fusion album to listen to. If you have not heard it, check it out on YouTube. Weather Report, Sweet Nighter. Please forgive me if I missed some of the names on the musicians on this album, but it's a great album to listen to, I think. Now I'm getting to my top 5. And like I said, there's really a tie between that Weather Report Sweet Nighter album and this album. One of the great drummers ever, Billy Cobham, Spectrum, issued in 1973. It is a spectacular drum performance by Billy Cobham. It's like a jazz fusion funk effort. And he's one of the most talented, most expressive jazz drummers, performers of all time. And he displays that well in his album Spectrum. This might be part of the Analog Productions Acoustic Sounds Atlantic series. I'm not sure. But if it is, I'm definitely going to get it. But I got to check that to actually see if that's true. But Billy Cobham Spectrum jazz fusion funk album with Billy Cobham playing exceptionally well on the drums. Like I said, one of the greatest jazz fusion drummers, one of the greatest drummers to ever live, in my opinion. Coming in, that's number 5, by the way. Number 4, in this album, I'm putting in my list, but I'm applying a caveat to it. This album, when you play it on a system, a really good stereo system, it doesn't sound well. It wasn't recorded well. I just like the performance. Some things we listen to for the music, not because it's always an audiophile experience. And this is not an audiophile experience. This is a CD. I don't have the album. This is an SACD, I should say. Black Beauty, Miles Davis at the Fillmore West. I like the performance on this, but the sound is not that good at all, in my opinion. But the reason why I like this is because this album was recorded soon after the release of Bitches Brew. Therefore, there's a few compositions on here, like 3 or 4, that were on Bitches Brew that were recorded live on this album, or CD, or SACD, which this is. And I really enjoyed the performance, but not the sound at all. This was not issued in the United States in 1973, by the way, to my understanding. This was issued in Japan only in 1973 with no song listings. And it was issued in United States around 1997. I think they had to go through and sift out, figure out what songs were actually on the album for royalty payment purposes. I don't know if that was part of the delay or not. I don't know if part of the delay was this actually doesn't sound good, but the performance is real good. But I would check this out. Issued in Japan in 1973, Miles Davis, Black Beauty, live at the Fillmore West. Again, this is a SACD. This is number 4 on my list. At number 3, well, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. Again, a great example of jazz fusion that combines, elements of progressive rock, elements of jazz improvisation. The Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. It's really a joy to listen to. Jerry Goodman on violin. Great Billy Cobham was on here on drums. John McLaughlin, electric guitar. John Hammer, keyboards. Really, really spectacular album to listen to. Birds of Fire, John McLaughlin, the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You definitely check this out. Coming in at number 2, this easily could have been number 1. It's the greatest jazz fusion albums ever made. It's Herbie Hancock, Headhunters. I said this in many videos. I heard this album when it first came out, when I was like in the 6th grade, because my older brothers had it. And it is a spectacular album, a spectacular example of jazz fusion with the creative, innovative, and forward-thinking keyboard playing of Herbie Hancock. He was really expressive, innovative, and creative on this masterpiece of a jazz fusion album for 1971. Easily could have been number 1 on my list. Herbie Hancock playing the keyboards, Benny Maupin, tenor sax, soprano sax, bass clarinet, alto flute, Paul Jackson, electric bass, and it says here marimbula, okay. Bill Summers handling the percussion instruments. Harvey Mason drums. 1973, Herbie Hancock, Headhunters. Actually one of the best jazz fusion records ever made. Is number 2 on my list from 1973. At number 1, Chick Corea and Return to Forever. Light as a Feather. Chick Corea, who played with Miles Davis around the Bitches Brew era, toured with Miles Davis, started his own thing with Return to Forever, Stanley Clarke bass, Flora Preamp vocals, great compositions on this album. Spain is a fabulous composition that you should definitely check out from this album. Also, Light as a Feather, and 500 Miles High, with great vocals from Flora Preamp on this album, 500 Miles High. This is my #1 jazz fusion album from 1973 because I just like the styling and the style and the keyboard compositions and the direction of Chick Corea on this album. They make an expanded version of this album on CDs with alternate takes, and it's on CD, and it's worth checking out. Chick Corea, Return to Forever, Light as a Feather, #1 on my jazz fusion list from 1973. Please leave your favorite jazz fusion albums from 1973 in the comment section below. That's mine. What's yours? Thank you very much for viewing my video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. Thank you very much. And thank you for all of the viewership in the past, and thank you for viewing this video. Thank you very much. God bless, strong love, and keep the peace worldwide.